Hey guys, how are you? So today I wanted to talk about my HSG experience. I went and had my follicle scan. I shared with you guys what happened there, and then they walked me over to the surgical center and I had the HSG. So for those of you who don't know or who are going to have one and haven't had one yet, what an HSG is, and I'm not going to try to say the name of it because I know I will butcher it because I just am not good at talking sometimes. You'll see that. So basically what an HSG is they put in a speculum and they enter a catheter through into the vagina, maybe TMI, but they put the catheter through the cervix all the way up into your uterus. So similar to an IUI as in the way that they put a catheter into the uterus, but once they're in there, they're actually pressing a button and injecting dye into the uterus. It fills up the uterus, and then it should flow through the fallopian tubes out into the ovaries, and that shows that the ovaries are healthy, the fallopian tubes are clear, there's no blockages, there's no twists or adhesions, stuff like that, and that the uterus is the correct shape, the way the position is in, and stuff like that, just to make sure that that's normal as well. So they put the dye in, and if it runs through, it's clear. If not, a lot of times the dye will push through the blockage, and that clears the blockage in its own as long as it's small enough. And they just take x-rays while they're doing that. So for my experience, I was a little bit nervous because I had watched videos like this beforehand, and people were, you know, on one side of the spectrum or the other. I didn't find too many videos that were too much in the middle. Either everyone said, oh my god, it's excruciating, I was in the worst pain for 10-15 seconds. And then other people say, oh, I didn't even feel it. It was over before I knew. So my thing is I kind of assumed the worst, and then usually the best happens. It's not too bad. So I assumed the worst, and weirdly enough, it was not as bad as I thought it would be, and worse than what I thought it would be at the same time. So in the fact that it's not as bad as I thought it would be because of what the video said about excruciating, terrible, but I definitely was naive thinking that, oh, it's going to be fine, and it was worse than that. So it was pretty painful. You go in there and they have you get up on this table and you put your legs, it's not even your feet in stirrups. Like, it's not even like the gynecologist, where I was anyways. It's stirrups that hold your calves. So you put your legs up in these things. They're pretty high up. They're like high above you. They're not just in the little stirrups down here. And they come in, they put in, well, they put in the speculum. They scraped me twice or something to get it clean. That's what they made sure, because when they're pushing in the catheter, they don't want to push any bacteria up into the cervix and the uterus that's not supposed to be there. So they scrape it clean a couple times. That felt similar to a pap smear, which I thought the whole thing was going to feel like, but that's what felt similar to, you know, the cramping after they scrape around for the pap smear. And that's what I thought it was going to feel like, but that was just the beginning part. And then they put in the catheter and she pushes it through the cervix. So that's a little bit more painful than the scraping. And then they start taking pictures and they start inserting the dye. So I had a nurse next to me, behind me, monitoring. I had the doctor who was down performing the HSG, and then you have the technician who's taking the actual x-rays and doing stuff, making sure that they're clear. So she starts injecting the dye, and that is when it started to hurt. It's very similar to a very bad period cramp. Definitely a little bit more intense. It was pretty painful, but it was more, so some side effects you can have is you can get lightheaded or dizzy when it's happening, because sometimes your blood pressure can drop. That's what they told me. Definitely hurt a lot, but the worst thing that happened is I got so nauseous. I started getting really hot. At the end, they brought me an ice pack and put it on my head and my neck, but I literally started breaking out in a sweat. If had the pain gone on any longer, I think I probably would have thrown up. But that's just a natural reaction. And don't get me wrong, I know I'm making it sound terrible, but the worst of it only lasts about 15 seconds, and they had some problems getting the dye through my right tube. I don't know if that was because of a small blockage or if I was just twisted a little bit, and so I adjusted a little tiny bit, and finally the dye pushed through the right tube. It went immediately through the left tube, and they're having trouble getting it through, so she kept pushing the dye. So I think maybe that's why it was a little bit more painful. They say it's only really painful when you have blockages. But it wasn't really that bad at all. It's nothing to be scared of, because even the pain that you do feel, it's very temporary. And come on, ladies, we're going to be feeling it a lot worse once we're having those babies that we really, really can't wait for. After that, after they finally cleared both tubes and said I was good to go, they took everything out, and they put, like I said, they put the ice pack here and here just to cool me off a little, had me lay down for a second because I was still feeling really sick. Then I went back to the little thing, I changed. They do give you a panty liner, and I would suggest buying some as well, because when you first stand up, you leak a little bit of the ink, not ink, but dye out. Sometimes you leak some of the jelly that they put in. So it's just a little bit of uncomfortable feeling, and you don't want it, to stain your underwear and stuff or anything like that. So put a panty liner on, change, and leave. So probably for about 30 minutes after that, I had what felt like bad period cramps. Granted, when I get my period, I get terrible period cramps. So it wasn't too much different for me. It wasn't too bad. And then it went away. So it's been 3 hours after. I'm still feeling pretty nauseous, but that's also because of the antibiotics and everything. But it's nothing too bad. I'm still sore, not cramping as intense as I was, but I'm sore, and certain ways that I sit, like back on my butt, I get a little bit of discomfort or sharp pains. Like, it's really weird, but it's kind of like in the booty area / you can just feel it, in your uterus and stuff. It just feels a little uncomfortable. I'm letting myself rest for the rest of the day. It was just a lot. It was a little stressful. So I think the worst part of all of it, honestly, is having to take the antibiotics and what that does to your stomach. And I think that's where most of what I'm feeling is coming from. So it's really not too bad. I wouldn't be scared if you're doing it. I just wanted to share with you guys my experience with it. But hopefully it says that, especially within the first 3 months after it, it really increases your chances. So we're having our first IUI Tuesday. And the left was totally open, and that's where my 2 dominant follicles are currently. So I'm super excited, and I don't really have anything else for this video. So I will follow up with you guys on the next step. Thanks. Bye. I'll edit that out. That was just silly.